Justin?
Okay, so now we're back.
We're back. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the question is, just to repeat, well, so there were other youths obviously before you. I think that's quite obvious. So you had the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, the Gen Ys. How different do you think they are from the youth that, well, essentially you are? Justin?
Well, when we look at our parents when they were younger, they fought for something. You know, the Marcos regime was there, and then now we have all kinds of problems still. And I think the technology of today really helps. You know, we have all these Facebook, social media, and it all helps us communicate and spread ideas, just like what's happening in the Middle East.
But again, that's an interesting thing. One of the comments that people keep making about the baby boomer generation, for example, or those youth who were part of the first quarter storm, is that they keep saying, well, at least we fought for something. And one of the things that I think they accuse the youth of today is that, what are you guys doing? What are you standing for? You seem to be quite materialistic. And some of the accusations they hurled at is that you're quite shallow. All you do is just Facebook and tweet, whatever. Well, I mean, do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, we can't take it as face value. We can't just, we have to go beyond what we see every day. And I really think the youth of today is really more active, or as active as before. Because, I mean...
In what sense?
Well, I mean, the Facebook may seem like it's nothing, you know, but it really helps communicate ideas. You know, people are posting videos, people are posting thoughts, you know, and it spreads like wildfire, actually. So,
but one area that I'd like to keep on discussing is, how different do you think you are from the youth of previous generations, especially in terms of values and virtues? Do you think the youth of yesterday were more conservative, or do you think that they're actually more liberal in their values? What do you think? Yeah.
Well, I think that the youth of, well, before, at least from how I understood it, is they were more, like, for example, there's a trend. They actually like following it, but now it's more the less mainstream you are, the more cooler you actually appear. So that means going against the grain is cool. So if doing that means going against what's right, or going against what our parents think used to be the norm, I think that's basically what's been happening to a lot of young people. It's cool to be a rebel. It's cool to be.
You're talking of today's youth.
I'm talking about today.
But I think that's how it's always been, right? I mean, that's why you have, for example, James Dean making money out of all those movies wherein he was actually a rebel. But in terms of being a rebel, I mean, I think every youth would at one point or another be a rebel.
But
true. How different is the rebellion in those days from the rebellion that it is now?
Well, from my perspective, because we have to keep in mind that when these people say that their generation did something way better, or they were the best generation, this is all in retrospect. It's like 20 years after they were youth, that's when they started saying, oh, back then we were better. But if you think about it, when they were youth, most of them didn't really think they were doing that much. In fact, they thought, oh, the previous generation, oh, that youth was doing something. So perhaps it's like we are doing something, but we just haven't realized it yet.
Well, you were talking of I think you were making reference, for example, to the Second World War generation, the so-called greatest generation. Yeah. Now, one thing they could say is, for them is that, well, they were actually tested, and they were tested by a war. And I think one of the things that they could probably throw at you is that, oh, what have you guys done? You guys have not actually been tested. I mean, if you look at the Gen Xers, they went through, for example, the EDSA People Power Revolution. And the baby boomers went through the first quarter storm. What about you guys? What have you gone against? I mean, you can't actually claim credit for having gone through the financial crisis. Most likely it would have been your parents who were tested for that one, but not you. I mean, what can you say about that?
Well, because the youth has a certain pattern of behavior, and it's usually not only rebellion, but it's exploration of identity, of direction in life. But what probably differs us from the other generation is really the environment, political, social, cultural, because that determines how we react to things. But what binds us together of being a youth is really, what you call this, the innovation, the innovativeness of our identity. And so I think there is still merit to being...
What do you mean, innovativeness of your identity?
For instance, as what Justin has mentioned, most of us now seem to be so wayward and just nonchalant about the technology, not thinking of anything. But underneath that, we're actually communicating ideas, for instance, of sustainable development, environmental awareness, and we use the technology that we ourselves, the youth, have actually participated in developing. And you can also cite other social entrepreneurs who are still young. For instance, if
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, Zuckerberg. He was very instrumental in the Arab Spring. In the Philippines, we have the likes of Fernandez Ruiz of the Rags to Riches, who was able to uplift the poverty situation in Payatas through business, at the same time retaining her youth, jovial spirit. So it's very...
Well, if I may just say this, Alexander Hamilton became the first Treasury Secretary. I think almost created the central bank or the financial system of the United States out of the American Revolution. He also created West Point, if I'm correct, and he wrote or was one of the writers of the Federalist Papers, all I think before the age of 30. Then you have Del Pilar. Then you have Aguinaldo, who was president at the age of 29. You have Thomas Jefferson, obviously young men at the time that they were in the American Revolution, and look at the achievements that they had. And perhaps it could be unfair, but when we compare what they have done and to what the youth of today has done, would you agree that yours would actually pale considerably in relation to them? Mon,
I think it's a very unfair comparison, given that they had the historical stimulus, meaning there were actual events that pressed them to do that. So I don't think that it's fair for us to expect the youth to lead a revolution when there's no reason whatsoever to lead a revolution. I think it's unfair. It's just fair to expect that the youth would just be ordinary these days because they don't have that stimulus. I think it's extraordinary, for example, for the youth today to just study well, to do their part, and not, it doesn't. For me, it's just an unfair comparison.
Okay. Oh.
And also, what is particular about the youth of today is we work we thrive in an environment where, as the notion goes, everything in the known world has already been known. And as opposed to the way back when, there are still some things that the world needs to know. And those very innovative youth members were able to, like the likes of Jefferson, were able to do. But in our case, our contribution or value added is really reinterpretation of the meaning of life in different aspects of our being youth.
And to add to that, well, you said Hamilton did all this, but he was age 30. Well, for our generation, we have people like Cherise. They're only like 15, 16, and look what they have done. So, yeah, I mean...
Federal Reserve. Glee.
In comparison, it's, we're getting there, we're doing things.
No, but I agree. It's an unfair comparison. It's just I wanted to see, and again, you're right. It has to do with the historical events or the context with which. But isn't there a lot of challenges that is facing us right now? Wouldn't you say that a lot, especially with regard to the situation that we have in the country, the political conflicts that we have? Isn't there anything you feel that the youth could make a valuable contribution to?
I think one particular disposition of the youth that kind of impedes that is it's easy for young people to be apathetic, since I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the generation or the how young people are usually brought up. But at least from my observation, it's easy for young people to think that they leave it up to the not so young people. I wouldn't say old, not so young people to solve the problems of the world. And if there's anything else that they're more adamant about fighting for, I think it's their identity or their it's not so much ideological now. It's not so much I don't know too many young people who like fighting for a really noble cause. But if you ask anyone around, it's really a matter of wanting to be heard, just and understood. So it's
Justin, wouldn't you say that the apathy, for example, or the cynicism is the one that's actually more ascendant among the youth right now?
Well, it may seem that way, but actually what's happening, if you look, the youth is more active today, or it's has been
Probably they're
active,
just louder
yeah.
because of the technology.
Well, yeah.
Mm.
And I mean, they're really out there. You know, I know people who are really out there, not just within the four walls of the classroom or the four walls of the room.
But as I said, it could be possible that they're just louder, but what they're actually saying is a little bit emptier.
I think it's not that the youth is really apathetic or empty about it. It's just the problem with this generation is that they usually expect instant results. So if usually the youth, when they move, they want instant change. Unlike probably it's because of the technology that it gives you the value of getting instant things. That's why they used to, when they move, parang in-expect agad nila na kapag may ginawa tayo, dapat agad-agad may results. So I think they're active, pero yun nga, they have that value na they always want easy results or quick results.
But does that mean tuloy that they don't have the perseverance for certain issues that would actually can only be resolved through a longer period of time?
Before I can probably give you a final or a clear answer to that, I like to digress a bit or deviate because I do think that the youth has contributed a lot. It's just that it's underestimated because there's still the notion of the world or a world ideology that the youth is seen as a vulnerable sector or a sector that cannot really contribute. So I think their contributions are less seen in the mainstream. I mean, for instance, we have kids who are very instrumental or who perished in the course of fighting for freedom in the Arab Spring, and that has already been broadcast all over networks. And there's another, for instance, in the States, there's a kid who stood by his choice towards the third gender, and who actually broadcast it openly, but who perished along the way because for some circumstances. But what we actually contribute is really awareness of where the world is right now. It's just so unfortunate that at times probably the world hasn't really seen our much attention given what's happening.
Well, that's interesting. We'll wrap up the episode in the next discussion, and hopefully we can come up some very interesting topics for their guests. What do the youth think about contraception, for example, and what about the youth position that they have, for example, in divorce. Hope you can join us and stay with us, please.